What if I told you that some of the most profound and timeless lessons on parenting come from stories written over 2 millennia ago? How does the Bible, an ancient text, reveal the true essence of unconditional love in parenting, and how can these stories still guide us today? Welcome to the Bible Insights channel, your gateway to unlocking the timeless treasures of Scriptures. Dive deep into the Word of God with us as we demystify its mysteries, uncover its timeless truths, and bring its profound wisdom to life. Before we begin, do well to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us to continue sharing the profound wisdom, insights, and timeless truths of the Bible. Also ensure you watch this video till the end to gain valuable wisdom and insights the Word of God has to offer. Let's start with one of the most powerful parables Jesus ever shared, the story of the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 32. In this parable, a father has 2 sons. The younger one, driven by impatience and selfish ambition, asks for his share of the inheritance while his father is still alive, a request that in that cultural context was deeply offensive. Essentially, the son was saying, "I'd rather have your money than a relationship with you." He takes the wealth, leaves home, and squanders it all on reckless living. When famine strikes and he's left with nothing, he comes to his senses and decides to return home, hoping his father will at least take him in as a hired servant. Now here's where we see the heart of unconditional love. The father sees his son approaching from a distance. This detail is critical. It shows that the father had been waiting, perhaps watching daily, hoping his son would return. And when he sees him, he doesn't hesitate. He doesn't wait for an apology. He doesn't give him a list of his mistakes or tell him, "I told you so." Instead, the father runs to him, an act that was considered undignified for a man of his status in that time, and embraces him. He orders the best robe to be put on his son, a ring on his finger, and sandals on his feet, all symbols of restored honor, authority, and sonship. Then he throws a feast to celebrate his son's return. This is unconditional love, love that is not contingent on behavior or worthiness, but on relationship and grace. The beauty of this story lies in its portrayal of both parental and divine love. The Father's love mirrors God's love for us. No matter how far we stray, no matter how many mistakes we make, His arms are always open, waiting to welcome us back. It's a love that doesn't keep score, that doesn't demand repayment, but simply rejoices in the return of the lost. For parents today, the lesson is profound. True love doesn't hinge on our children meeting our expectations or living without mistakes. Instead, it calls us to extend grace, forgiveness, and open arms, even when it's hard. Another profound example comes from the story of Abraham and Isaac in Genesis 22. This passage is often seen as one of the most challenging and perplexing stories in the Bible, but it's also a deeply moving testament to faith and the love that comes from trust. Abraham had waited decades for his promised son, Isaac. Finally, when Isaac was born, Abraham's joy must have been unimaginable. But then, God gives him a command that seems impossible to obey: sacrifice his only son. Abraham's heart must have been torn, yet he obeys without hesitation, trusting that God's plan is higher than his understanding. As Abraham prepares to sacrifice Isaac, God intervenes, providing a ram in his place. Isaac's life is spared, and Abraham's faith is rewarded. While this story might seem harsh at first glance, it reveals a deeper truth about parental love and trust in God. Abraham loved Isaac dearly, but his willingness to obey God demonstrates a love even greater: his love and trust in God's plan. As parents, we often want to shield our children from hardship or make decisions that we think are best for them. But sometimes, true love means surrendering our desires and trusting that God's plan for our children is better than anything we could imagine. It's about letting go of control and having faith that God will provide, even when the path is unclear. Now, let's look at the story of Hannah in 1 Samuel, chapter 1. Hannah's story is one of deep anguish and ultimate devotion. For years, she longed for a child, praying fervently for God to bless her with a son. Her prayers were so intense that Eli, the priest, initially thought she was drunk. But Hannah wasn't just praying for a child to fulfill her own desires. She was making a vow to dedicate her child to the Lord's service. When God finally answered her prayer and gave her a son, Samuel, Hannah kept her promise. When Samuel was still very young, she brought him to the temple and dedicated him to the Lord's service under Eli's care. This story highlights the sacrificial nature of unconditional love. Hannah had longed for a child for so many years, and yet, when she finally received what she had prayed for, she gave him back to God. This was not a decision made lightly or without emotion. It was a profound act of faith and love. She recognized that Samuel was ultimately a gift from God, and her deepest desire was for him to fulfill God's purpose. For parents today, this is a powerful reminder that our children are not ours to keep or control. They are entrusted to us for a time, but ultimately, they belong to God. Unconditional love means allowing them to grow into the people God has called them to be, even if that means letting go of our own plans or desires for their lives. There's also the story of David and Absalom in 2 Samuel chapters 13 to 18. This is a story of love that, despite being rejected, never dies. Absalom, David's son, rebels against his father, seeking to overthrow him and take the throne. Despite Absalom's betrayal, David's love for him never wavers. When Absalom is eventually killed in battle, David's grief is overwhelming. He cries out, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." David's lament is one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the Bible, showing that even when a child turns against a parent's love remains steadfast. David would have gladly given his own life to save his son, even after all the pain Absalom had caused him. This is perhaps one of the most challenging aspects of unconditional love in parenting. It's easy to love our children when they are obedient and loving in return. But true unconditional love endures even through betrayal, rebellion, and pain. David's love for Absalom, even in the face of such hurt, is a reflection of God's unending love for us. No matter how far we run, no matter what we do, His love remains constant. For parents, this story is a reminder that our love for our children should not be conditional on their behavior. It is a love that continues, even in the face of disappointment and heartache. Finally, let's not forget Mary, the mother of Jesus. In Luke chapter 2, verses 34 to 35, the prophet Simeon tells Mary that a sword will pierce her own soul because of what will happen to her son. And yet, Mary accepts this with grace. She watches her son grow up, knowing that his life will lead to suffering. She stands at the foot of the cross, watching him die a painful and unjust death, yet her love for him never wavers. Mary's story is a poignant example of the pain and sacrifice that often come with parental love. She endured the unimaginable, yet her love for her son never faltered. If these examples of biblical parenting resonate with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more insights on faith and family. Share this video with a parent who could use encouragement today, and let's continue to grow together in love and faith. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.